Hello, I am Hyunyoung Kim from the NFFC. Today we will look into the NFFC, an organization that represents Korean fishermen. We will take time to study its roles in fisheries distribution and the government's distribution policy. This is the table of contents. First, we'll look at the history and organizational structure of the NFFC in Korea. Next, we will study the NFFC's role in fisheries distribution. Lastly, we will take a look at national support policies related to fisheries distribution. The first is the history and organizational structure of the NFFC. The NFFC is an organization made up of fishermen to represent themselves. In July 1908, the cooperative called Koje Hansan Gajo Fishnet Cooperative was established, and this is the first fisheries cooperative in Korea. Of course, we used to have private groups composed of fishermen before this, but this was the first systemized organization. It is generally recognized as the beginning of Korea's fishery cooperatives. Honestly, the name of this organization is too long and difficult. It's not easy to understand what it means. It was named after 3 islands, Goje Island, Hansan Island, and Gajo Island, a small island further away from the Goje Island. Added was the name of the fishing method that was used a lot around these islands. The name of cooperatives is names of the region plus the fishing method. There were not many fishing tools and methods back then, so fishermen caught fish by casting a net in fish habitats. That's why there is a term of fishnet in the name. To sum up, fishermen of 3 islands who mainly catch fishes with nets gathered together and established a cooperative. These days, the cooperatives and the government works together, and the government supports the cooperatives, maintaining a good relationship. Because the government cannot support each fisherman who is a member of the cooperative, cooperatives are entrusted with the role of the intermediary and support fishermen. However, when it first appeared, its role and meaning were a little different. Originally, a cooperative is a self-reliant organization in that fishermen cooperative to fight against the high-handedness of the state or powerful people. When the first fisheries cooperative was created, fishermen voluntarily gathered together to fight against severe high-handedness during the Joseon dynasty. The high-handedness was caused not only by political power, but also by economic power, because fishermen had little economic power and were subject to economic subjugation. After the nation got stabilized through various upheavals such as the Korean War, a modern legal order was set up in the early 1960s. Under the modern legal system, the Fisheries Cooperative Act was enacted on April 1st, 1962, and the NFFC was established. The NFFC was officially launched with 3 sub-cooperatives, including the District Fisheries Cooperatives, Industry-Specific Fisheries Cooperatives, and the Fishery Processing Fisheries Cooperatives. Also, the National Federation of Fisheries Cooperatives was established, and the cooperatives are members of this federation. Now, the federation has 92 member cooperatives. In December 1988, the nation was decentralized, and the NFFC changed the method to elect its leader. The president used to appoint the chairman of the NFFC, but from then, heads of each cooperative started to choose the chairman through direct election. A head of each cooperative used to be appointed by the NFFC chairman, but now the head is elected directly by fishermen, becoming more democratic. Projects operated by the NFFC until 2000 can be largely divided into 3 categories. The first is the education business for member cooperatives and fishermen. The second is the economic business such as distribution and processing. The third is the financial business to financially support fishermen and member cooperatives. For more professional management of these business, the NFFC converted the economic business and financial businesses into independently managed systems equivalent to separate corporations in December 2000. In February 2002, the NFFC acquired the Noryangjin Fish Market in Seoul, the largest consumer fishery wholesale market in Korea, and has been operating it directly. The NFFC directly operates the fishery wholesale market to increase fishermen's income with higher fishery prices. In 2010, the first education business and the second economic business were integrated through a more professional management system. Years have passed, and this year, April 1st, 2022, marks the 62nd anniversary of the NFFC. Korea has a tradition of celebrating the 60th birthday with a big feast when a person reaches that age because he or she went through the sexagenary cycle. The NFFC has completed the sexagenary cycle while standing shoulder to shoulder with fishermen. It is said all tissues of the human body are regenerated. Blood and muscles are regenerated into two blood and muscles in about 6 months, and nerves and bones are regenerated in about 7 years. But experts say that it takes 60 years for the human brain to be regenerated. What's surprising is not the length of time, but the fact that the brain also changes. The completion of a sexagenary cycle and the regeneration of the brain seem to be connected peculiarly. The wisdom of our ancestors who saw through this is both surprising and wonderful. I strayed from the topic a little, but I think that is a great blessing for both the fishermen and the NFFC that we were able to stand shoulder to shoulder for 60 years. The fisheries cooperatives in particular, the NFFC, have the following mission and functions. Broadly and comprehensively, the NFFC exists to improve the economic, social, and cultural status of fishermen and fishery processors based on independent and self-reliant cooperatives. To achieve this, we carry out 3 major businesses: education business, economic business, and financial business. Firstly, the education business includes a support program for fishermen's production activities, a program to improve the management of member cooperatives, a fisherman education program, safe fishing guidance and fishery communication program, a program to study and promote fishing activities, and an international cooperation program. Secondly, the economic business includes the price stabilization and price support program for fishery products, a program to build distribution infrastructure and expand the fishery market, a manufacturing processing program to enhance added value, and a program to supply fishery equipment and duty-free oil. Thirdly, the financial business includes the program for fishery policy financing, banking program including deposits, loans, trusts, foreign exchange and a credit card, and mutual finance and insurance program, and insurance for fishing vessels, crews, and cultured fishery products to support fishermen and member cooperatives. All these programs are very important because they back up fishermen and member cooperatives. But I can only name the titles of program because it is too complicated to explain their details. I think it must have been a bit confusing because there are several terms like the NFFC, member cooperatives, and fishermen, and they are mixed. Let me explain their relationship in detail with this diagram. The diagram is in an inverted pyramid form, so the bottom is actually the top. Because a cooperative is an organization made up of fishermen or farmers, the Federation of Cooperatives should act as a servant that supports them. In the previous lecture, I used terms like fishery industry and related industries. The term fishing industry already exists, so using the term fishery industry is not right in principle and by definition. However, this term is officially used in Korea. This is because the fishing industry exists thanks to related industry that backs it up, and not only those directly engaged in the fishing industry, but also those in the related industry are important. On the other hand, the related industry exists because of the fishing industry. Related industry includes diverse businesses such as fishing net manufacturing, fishing vessel manufacturing, distribution and sales of fisheries, food service, and fishery-related research and education. If you check the number of those in the fishery and related industries from the industry classification table, there are 1.38 million in Korea. The number is 9 times higher than that of cooperative members, 159,000 who are directly engaged in fishing. Politicians whose life and death depends on the election focus on the electoral votes. Because the fishery industry accounts for only 0.2%, the public and politicians paid less attention to the fishery industry. However, if you add the people on the related industry, the number is not small at all. The NFFC conducted the survey and found out that 1.38 million are engaged in fishery industry. The government acknowledged this number and has been conducting an official survey every year. You may find similar cases in Cambodia, like fishing and agriculture may be neglected in election. If so, it is useful to emphasize the number and role of the related business statistically. Let me go back to the diagram. There are 92 member cooperatives under the NFFC, 70 district fisheries cooperatives based on regions, 20 industry-specific fisheries cooperatives, and 2 fishery processing fisheries cooperatives. If you add members of each district cooperative, the number reaches 159,000, so each district cooperative has 2,214 members on average. Also, 20 industry-specific cooperatives have 4,000 members, and 2 fishery processing cooperatives have 200 members. To support them, the NFFC has 2,842 employees and the cooperatives have 5,835 employees. Each cooperative has 63 employees on average to provide support in the field. I mentioned that it is difficult to explain the roles and tasks of the NFFC in detail due to time constraints, but I really want to introduce this. One of the key roles of the NFFC is cooperation with overseas organizations in the private sector and cooperation with the ICA. In Korea, there is an idiom, neighbor cousins. Neighbors are people who live next door. Cousins are the closest relatives connected to my parents. This idiom is saying that you may be more friendly with your neighbors who live close, and may not be very friendly with your cousins who share the same blood but live far away and cannot help you. The same is true for the fishery industry. Korea also suffers from many fishing disputes and fishermen in neighboring countries such as China and Japan. If everything is solved with the fisheries agreement between countries, there would be no issues. However, problems are not that easy to be solved even between a few friends. Disputes between countries and between the many peoples in them would be worse. I think Cambodia and other coastal countries are facing a similar situation. Settling disputes is not easy at all. Naturally, the government cannot handle this quickly, and it takes a lot of time to settle it with diplomatic measures. In this case, international cooperation between cooperatives can be alternative to quickly solve problems. The NFFC is playing that role. The NFFC is striving for the continuous development of the fishery industry through exchanges and cooperation among private fishermen of neighboring countries, China and Japan. Although Korea does not border Russia, the NFFC is in charge of practical negotiations so that Korean squid fishing vessels can operate in Russian waters. This slide highlights these efforts. The NFFC chairman has served as the chairman of the ICFO under the ICA since 2009. We are striving to improve the rights and interests of fishery cooperatives around the world. Cambodia is not yet a member of the ICFO. I hope that Cambodia will establish the fisheries cooperatives and join the ICFO as soon as possible for more cooperation with us. This simple diagram shows what the NFFC pursues. The NFFC backs up the healthy fishery industry through sustainable harmony of the fishery, fishing villages, and fishermen. It is called 3F in English. A healthy fishery industry is sustainable with all three elements working together. If so, it can serve the plural functions I mentioned in the previous lecture and public functions to provide benefits to all citizens for free. So far, we have looked at the comprehensive roles of the NFFC. Now let's take a look at the NFFC's role in fisheries distribution. In relation to economic business, the NFFC is involved in many tasks. In particular, it performs many roles in consignment and joint sales of fishery products during distribution. The consignment sales help fishermen revive just price for their products in production areas. The joint sales maintain prices at an appropriate level to supply products at a reasonable price for consumers. In other words, the NFFC is playing the role of protecting both producers and consumers. Protecting both producers and consumers is a very ideal goal and difficult to be done. Still, that goal can be achieved through several roles. First, the NFFC prevents middle merchants from taking advantage of shortcomings of the distribution structure. Second, it reduces distribution costs to avoid unnecessary social costs caused by an unreasonable distribution system. Third, the NFFC encourages efficient and rapid distribution to maintain the freshness of fishery products and preserve their value. The NFFC has various programs to achieve this goal, such as consignment sales, sales after purchase, joint sales, and sales by subscription. For efficient distribution of fishery products, the NFFC established various distribution facilities first. There are 214 consignment markets, 9 joint markets in consumption areas, 108 ice making and freezing facilities, 48 processing facilities, 13 logistics centers, 12 NFFC marts that sell fishery products, 1 seaside restaurant that cooks and sells fishery products, 42 direct sales markets that cooperatives directly sell products to consumers, and 10 local trade support centers to support the export of fishery products. To avoid overlapping investment with the cooperatives, most facilities are operated by the member cooperative and the NFFC operates essential facilities only. The first photo shows how merchants in Noryangjin fish market serve consumers in a modernized and clean environment. The second photo shows an auction of chokgar and consumers checking the freshness. The third photo is a bird's eye view of the modernized consignment market that is remodeled to enhance the price of fishery products and hygiene and safety. Next, let's look at the government distribution policies in relation to fisheries distribution. The Korean government has diverse projects to support the distribution of fishery products. Let me name a few. There is a support for FPCs in production areas, the establishment of a clean consignment sales model, improvement of the fishery logistics environment, development of fishery industry complexes, improvement of the value of the fishery industry, and promotion of consumption, establishment of low-temperature auction houses for hygiene and safety in production areas, and establishment of new distribution networks such as direct sales, and support for the export of fishery products. First, let's look at the support for FPCs in production areas. The FPC stands for Fisheries Products Processing and Marketing Center. It is a comprehensive distribution facility to scale up the fishery processing volume and increase the added value. It is to contribute to increasing producers' income in response to the FTA by establishing a system in which FPC's marketing profits are returned to producers. The beneficiaries are fishery cooperatives, fishery corporations, and fishery cooperative corporations. The central and local governments provide subsidies. The central government pays 40%, the local government pays 30%, and the beneficiary pays 30%. The project lasts for 3 years. The beneficiaries are constantly arguing that the self-contribution ratio should be lowered to 20% because fishery products have great inherent risks in distribution and processing. The second project is to establish the clean consignment sales model. It is to provide clean and safe fishery products to the public by establishing sanitation equipment throughout the entire process of unloading, sorting, consignment, release. The beneficiaries are fishery cooperatives, and the central and local government subsidize 40% and 30% of facility costs respectively. The fishery cooperatives that operates the consignment market bears 30% of the facility costs. The central and local governments provide subsidies for the establishment of consignment markets operated by the fisheries cooperatives because of the public function of the fishery industry. The primary beneficiaries of this project are fishermen who brings products and sell them at a good price at a good facility with a low distribution cost. The secondary beneficiaries are people who enjoy the public function derived from the fishery industry. The NFFC plays an intermediary role to sustain the fishery industry without any special profit. The roles of the NFFC, one explained before and will explain later, are very similar in this vein. The third project is to improve the fishery logistics environment. This is to expand the mechanization of loading by subsidizing rental fees for logistics equipment such as forklifts, pallets, and fish boxes, and to enhance the efficiency and sanitation management of fishery logistics. The beneficiaries are all those involved in the distribution of fishery products, such as fishermen, producer groups, consignment markets, wholesale markets, and so on. The government pays 50% and the beneficiary pays 50%. The support amount is adjusted considering applications for the corresponding year and the performance of the previous year within the budget. Next project is the development of fishery industry complexes. This is to foster a high value-added fishery food industry by utilizing abundant aquatic resources enrich region and to strategically nurture a specialized local food. It develops high value-added fishery products through the base complex and processes them to make products for consumers. By efficiently selling manufactured products through proper distribution and sales networks, it contributes to the revitalization of the local economy. Also, it aims to develop high value-added foods and commercialize them by utilizing the infrastructure of the base complex. The beneficiary is an entity selected as the most excellent one through evaluation among those who meet the application requirements and qualifications. The support condition and limit depends on the details of the project, but the government subsidizes 90% to 100% of the project. Accordingly, the self-contribution ratio is 10% or 0%. Fifth is a project to enhance the value of the fishery industry and promote fishery consumption. This is to increase the public value of fishery and fishing villages, thereby enhancing the awareness of fisheries and fishing villages for city residents. Also, it aims to promote the excellence of Korean fishery products to create a foundation for consumption. The beneficiary is selected as the most excellent one through evaluation among those who meet the application requirements and qualifications. The support condition and limit depends on the details of a project, but the government subsidizes 90% to 100% of the project. Accordingly, the self-contribution ratio is 10% or 0%. The following is a project to support the establishment of a low-temperature auction house for hygiene and safety in production areas. This is to lay the foundation for supplying fresh and safe fishery products to consumers by establishing a clean and safe system for fishery products distributed from production areas to consumers. The beneficiaries are those who already participated in the modernization of old consignment markets. First, the project selects an already remodeled consignment market that can block and buy and air by modernizing an old marketplace that lacks the facility for room temperature control. If the project provides secondary support to the modernized market, it can act as the low temperature auction house. On the one hand, the project selects consignment markets that can maximize effectiveness with minimal support. The central government supports 50%, the local government supports 30%, and the beneficiary pays 30%. The total project cost is limited to a maximum of KRW 3 billion. If the total project cost exceeds the upper limit, the beneficiary should pay for the extra amount. The seventh project is support to establish new distribution networks such as one for direct sales. This is to reduce distribution costs by actively responding to the diverse needs of consumers by establishing new distribution channels and by expanding direct sales. The beneficiary is the Fishery Direct Trade Promotion Center. The Fishery Direct Trade Promotion Center has a limit in its operating entity because it is difficult to be operated by private entities. The Minister of Oceans and Fisheries, the government department that oversees the Korean fishery industry, can establish the center of the NFFC to promote and support direct trade. The support condition and limit depends on the details of a project, but the government subsidizes 50% to 100% of the project. Accordingly, the self-contribution ratio is 50% or 0%. Last but not least, the government supports the export of fishery products to overseas market for fishery distribution. This is to expand the overseas distribution and trade market by supporting quality control, product development, market development, information collection, and promotion activities for the production, processing, distribution, and export of fishery products. The beneficiaries are producers, processors, and distributors of fishery products, including persons or organizations directly or indirectly related to them. The support conditions and limit vary depending on the details of a project, such as strengthening competitiveness, building logistics infrastructure, and expanding overseas markets. In addition, the government operates the food reserve system to stabilize the price of fishery products. As you are well aware, agriculture and fishery products are harvested at once and have seasonal variances. Also, it is very vulnerable to natural disasters that bring unpredictable damage and huge price fluctuation. If production amount becomes too large at once, the price may plummet. On the other hand, even though the supply is reduced due to production failure, consumption does not change much because they are food, resulting in skyrocketing prices. If the government ignores the characteristics and lets it move only according to the logic of the market, there is a risk that both producers and consumers suffer a great loss. Therefore, most countries in the world operate the food reserve system to maintain the price of agriculture and fishery products to protect both producers and consumers. Some powerful countries, which have relatively few issues due to well-developed market economy, are against government intervention. They are against the government's price support policy, arguing about the WTO DDA. Even in Korea, although the government's price support policy is essential for both consumers and producers, the government is reducing the project size because of the WTO. Looking back at the history of cooperatives in Korea, the NFFC chairman or cooperative leaders who were directly elected worked for the fishermen. The same goes for the heads of local governments in administration. Until 1988, when the direct election system started, the NFFC chairman and cooperative leaders only had to gain favor with whoever appointed them. As fishermen started to directly elect cooperative leaders and those leaders directly elected the NFFC chairman, the Korean fishery industry witnessed a lot of changes and many projects that can actually change the life of fishermen. I hope that all coastal countries, including Cambodia, would have producer organizations for fishermen so that the quality of life and welfare of fishermen can improve. Also, I sincerely hope that the Cambodia fisheries cooperatives join the ICA to stand shoulder to shoulder for international exchanges, cooperation, and support. The ICFO under the ICA has 24 fisheries-related organizations for 22 countries as members. No Cambodian fishery cooperatives or organizations joined yet. I'll wrap up the lecture by wishing you all the best in all you do. Thank you for paying attention. Thank you very much.